I call this meeting to order. Je déclare la séance ouverte. Bienvenue à la 20e réunion.
Welcome to the 20th meeting of the Special Committee of the House of Commons on COVID-19.
Members that in order to avoid issues with sound, members participating in person should not be connected to the video conference. Pour ceux qui participent par
For those joining via video conference, I would like to remind you that when speaking, you should be on the same channel as the language you are speaking.
As usual, please direct your remarks through the chair. Comme d'habitude, s'il vous plaît.
As usual, please direct your remarks through the chair. Now, moving on to ministerial announcements.
I understand that there are no ministerial announcements today, so we'll move on. Nous allons maintenant.
We will now proceed to the tabling of documents.
Mr. Blair.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, today I have the honor to table in both official languages the 2019 annual report of the RCMP's use of law enforcement justification provisions. Mr. Speaker, this report addresses the RCMP's use of specified provisions within the law enforcement justification regime, which is set out in sections 25.1 to 25.4 of the Criminal Code. This report also documents the nature of the investigations in which these provisions were used.
Thank you. Now, tabling of documents, Minister Sajjan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order 32, Sub 2, I have the honor to table in both official languages the 2018-2019 Progress Report on Canada's National Action Plan for the implementation of United Nations Security Council resolutions on women, peace, and security. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. And now we'll go on to presenting petitions. I would like to remind the members that any petition presented during the meeting of a special committee must have already been certified by the clerk of petitions. Pour les députés qui participent.
For members present in the chamber, a reminder to those who have not yet done so, so that members are asked to bring their petitions to the table.
Ms. May. Ms. May.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise to present two petitions today. They both pertain to protection of our natural world. One is an e-petition, and it relates to the threat to pollinators globally. We know that honeybees and other pollinators are essential to food production. The petitioners note research from around the world that points to a threat to pollinators, particularly from a class of pesticides known as the neonicotinoids. The European Union has taken action on this. The petitioners call on the Government of Canada to practice the precautionary principle and remove from use neonicotinoids in Canada to protect our pollinators. The second petition, Mr. Speaker, relates to the ongoing threat to the southern resident killer whales. These iconic whales are much beloved in Saanich Gulf Islands and through coastal British Columbia and indeed across Canada. The petitioners are calling for more action to be taken as the population of southern resident killer whales continues to decline, more action for boat-free safety zones, more prohibitions around whale tourism to make sure that the whales are safe from those who are keen to watch them but too closely, and more of a credible enforcement regime to support these measures to keep the southern resident killer whale population in our waters and not on the list of species that have become extinct. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We'll now go to Mr. Genius.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. For over 10 years, members of Parliament from various parties have been trying to get passed legislation to deal with the horrific practice of forced organ harvesting and trafficking. Erwin Kotler, Boris Yashnevsky, Senator Salma Tulajan, and myself have all proposed bills on this. Petitioners want the House to support Bill S-204. This is another bill that would make it a criminal offense for someone to go abroad and receive an organ for which there has not been consent. And I'm sure petitioners would want me to add that given the urgency of this issue, perhaps the government could consider bringing forward a government bill on this issue, which would allow the process to move much faster. Thank you.
We'll now go on to Mr. Cannings. Mr. Cannings.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I rise here today to present a petition from Canadian citizens in support of motion M1 that was
placed in this House by my colleague, the MP for New Westminster Burnaby, on the Green New Deal. And these citizens point out that climate change has escalated into a global climate emergency, and Canada must act with ambition and urgency. So they call on the government to support Motion M1, a Made in Canada Green New Deal, to take bold and rapid action to adopt socially equitable climate action, to tackle the climate emergency and address worsening socioeconomic and racial inequalities at the same time, while ending fossil fuel subsidies, closing offshore tax havens, and supporting workers impacted by the transition by creating well-paying unionized jobs in the shift to a clean and renewable energy economy. Thank you.
We'll now go to Mr. Johns. Mr. Johns.
Mr. Speaker, it's an honor and privilege to table e-petition 2577 that was sponsored by Chris Alamany from Port Alberni and supported by 5,183 petitioners. They're calling upon the Government of Canada to work urgently across party lines and in partnership with provincial and territorial governments to implement a guaranteed, consistent, national and livable universal basic income system for all Canadians. The petition is very timely, coming almost 1 year to the day since the completion of the National Inquiry on Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women and Girls, which also called upon the government to establish a guaranteed annual livable income for all Canadians. So whether providing a safety net to get through a global pandemic, the means to keep your children out of poverty at any time, or simply being able to afford safe housing or transportation, it's time for Canada to have this conversation.
We'll now go to Mr. Manley. Mr. Manley.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is it's an honor and privilege to present a petition on behalf of the constituents of Nanaimo Ladysmith. And this is a petition, people are concerned about gas fracking and the use of methane and the destruction that methane causes to our atmosphere and for climate change. And they're calling upon the government to commit to upholding the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and the Truth and Reconciliation process. The Commission of calls to action by immediately halting all existing and planned construction of the Coastal GasLink project on Wet'suwet'en territory, ordering the RCMP to dismantle their exclusion zone and stand down, and schedule nation-to-nation talks between Wet'suwet'en Nation and federal and provincial governments, something that we're happy to see has been happening, and commend the government for that effort, and prioritize the real implementation of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. Thank you.
We'll now go to presenting positions. Mr. Lamoureux.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, like Canada, Guyana is a part of the Commonwealth, and many constituents of Winnipeg North have raised the issue of regards to the presidential election back in March, where it was being called into question. There have been some very positive indications in the recent days, but these petitioners are asking the government of Canada, in fact, all members of Parliament, to be aware in terms of what's taking place in Guyana, and to, as much as possible, to be an advocate for democracy and making sure that we're being diligent in supporting what the people of Guyana want to see. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. And I just want to remind the honourable members, when presenting petitions, to be as concise as possible, to keep it, I notice they're starting to stretch a bit, and it's something we all tend to do, but I just want to remind the honourable members that keep it as concise and short as possible. Now we'll go on to statements by members. The first statement will go to Mr. Lefebvre.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to say thank you, merci, to the industrious people of Sudbury who have risen to the challenge and joined forces in the face of COVID-19. I am proud of all my constituents and all Canadians, including first responders, volunteers, healthcare and essential workers, including local miners, the farmers and produce growers feeding our families, and local businesses staying connected with their staff. I also salute all our homegrown innovations, such as Pro Stitch and King Sportswear's face mask, Crosscut Distillery hand sanitizer, Nobel Prize winners Snow Labs work on ventilators earning a federal contract, Valley Canada's $1 million in seed capital to small firms developing COVID-19 health solutions, and many more.
We're all in this together, and together we will get through this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Continue with Mr. Dalton. Mr. Dalton.
Mr. Chair, Pitt Meadows is one of Canada's most beautiful communities. It's tucked in between the Fraser and Pitt Rivers and is in the shadow of Golden Ears Mountain. Most of the areas actually consist of farmland, golf courses, parks, and conservation areas. It also has Pitt Lake, among the largest freshwater tidal lakes in the world. Pitt Meadows' history dates back thousands of years with Katzie First Nation. In the 1900s, Dutch immigrants drained and diked the marshes, allowing for today's bumper crops of cranberries and blueberries. It's hard to believe that this community is only a short commute to Vancouver and has one of the nation's busiest general aviation airports. Last weekend, the community came together to celebrate Pitt Meadows Day, a little differently because of COVID. In a great show of community spirit from their front yards and balconies, thousands of residents came out to cheer for first responders and essential workers as we paraded throughout the city. I'm thankful to have raised my family here, taught in the schools, and now be the Member of Parliament representing this wonderful community. Thank you.
We'll now go to Mr. Kelway.
Mr. Speaker, over the last few months, I've watched constituents in my riding come together to look out for one another during these challenging times. Regardless of how deep and painful this pandemic has been, it continues to amaze me just how brightly the collective character of Cape Breton Council shines through. Whether it is someone like Glenn Muse who delivered iPads to seniors' homes so they could connect with loved ones, teachers delivering meals to students in need, Liam and Lucas Sakalakis, two young boys who keep youth informed across the East Coast, or Rose Fitzgerald, who delivered bouquets made from her remaining flowers from her shop to essential workers across Guysborough County. Constituents in Cape Breton Council have stepped up to support their community and to support those in need. Mr. Speaker, as you know, it is with great pride that I represent my constituents in Cape Breton Council. The people in Cape Breton and northeastern Nova Scotia care deeply about one another. They know that as a community, we're only as strong as our most vulnerable people. And I cannot help but be filled with joy when I see these gestures happening across my riding. Thanks so much.
Nous allons maintenant continuer avec Madame.
We will now move to Ms. Bérubé. Ms. Bérubé. Mr. Speaker, unacceptable incidents of police brutality on Indigenous people have led Romeo Saganash, a former MP whose dedication I recognize, to call for a commission of inquiry similar to the Viens Commission in Quebec. We're open to this idea, but we can't wait to act. There are already things we can do proactively. For decades, these commissions have produced reports which are then shelved by Ottawa. Last year alone, the Viens report and the National Inquiry on Murdered and Missing Aboriginal Women made dozens of recommendations. The federal government has to work with Indigenous people, Quebec, and the provinces to adequately fund Aboriginal police forces. We have to create boards of ethics to monitor the RCMP. We have to educate the police and Canadians about the realities of Aboriginal culture. We can do many things to rebuild trust in the police in the name of reconciliation. We will now continue with Mr. McKinnon. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to congratulate, on behalf of myself and the House of Commons, to the graduating class of 2020. Because of the pandemic, we know that graduation will be different this year. Students will not go to prom, they will not have a grad ceremony, and in some cases, there will be no goodbyes to their friends and teachers. I know how much the students of the following schools, the Versant, Carrefour, Nicolas-Gatineau, l'Érablière, Collège Saint-Alexandre, Nouvelle-Frontière, Saint-Joseph, Philemon Wright, and other schools of the region are disappointed they won't be able to celebrate 5 years of hard work with their friends and family who were at their side every single day. But this does not diminish the achievement of these students. Having graduated, I say to them, charge ahead. The future is yours. Be ambitious, chase your dreams, but mostly keep on changing the Outaouais and the world. We will remember the class of 2020 for many years. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted to rise to talk about the Bruce Oak Recovery Centre, which is now under construction in my riding in Winnipeg. This state-of-the-art addictions recovery facility was made into a reality by Scott, Anne, and Darcy Oak in the memory of their son and brother, Bruce, who passed away tragically from an accidental overdose in 2011. The Bruce Oak Recovery Center will provide help to thousands of Manitobans to manage their addiction and reintegrate into the community. I was proud to support this project when I voted for it during my time on Winnipeg City Council. The addictions crisis in Canada needs action. With approximately 8 million Canadians suffering from addictions, we need centers like these to help them recover, so that no other family will face a heartbreaking loss due to addiction. I want to congratulate the Oaks for their commitment to making recovery for many a reality. Addictions affect us all, and we all have a part to play in contributing to the solution. Thank you.
Now go to Mr. Jawari. Mr. Jawari.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to recognize the compassion and generosity demonstrated in my riding of Richmond Hill. Week after week, residents and organizations came together to support our most vulnerable during a time of great difficulty. I want to thank the champions of the community who were generous enough to donate masks and other supplies as well as services. I would also like to recognize the charities and care centers that upon receiving these donations redoubled their efforts to serve their communities. Special thanks goes to the Monchon Foundation Long-Term Center, Divine Favor Senior Home Care, the Community and Home Assistance to Seniors, the True Compassion Home Health Center, the Blue Door, the Mosaic Interfaith Out of Coal, 360 Kids, Yellow Brick House, Hill House Hospice, Community Living York South, and Paria Trillium Foundation for continuing to support the residents in my riding of Richmond Hill. The compassion and generosity demonstrated by these donors and organizations make me proud to represent my community in Parliament. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We'll now go to Madame
Ms. Lalonde. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Normally at this time of the year, I have the pleasure of being invited to various graduation ceremonies for our grade 12 students in Orleans, but this year we all have to adapt to a new reality.
It's enough how in these exceptional times I have witnessed the strength, resilience, and community spirits of our graduates.
I also know that several high schools are doing everything they can to celebrate the achievement of their graduates. For new graduate Marianne Collard, it was wonderful to see that her school, Beatrice Deloge Catholic Secondary School, put up a billboard in front of her house to congratulate her for her academic achievement.
Not forget that youth in this country is our future. We have a responsibility to be there for them and to believe in them. We will not fail. Merci aux...
Thank you to the teachers and support staff and the directors of our schools who are keeping up with their work. Congratulations to all 2020 graduates.
To all graduates of 2020.
We'll now continue with Mr. Viss. Mr. Viss.
Mr. Chair, COVID-19 has changed and challenged how we go about our daily lives. For many, this includes a shift to working from home or attending school remotely. But the sad reality is that even before the crisis hit, most rural Canadians simply did not have access to a strong and stable internet connection, even though internet is an essential service. Those in underserved areas, including many parts of Mission, Matsqui, Fraser Canyon, cannot work from home, and their children cannot keep up with their classmates. For many of my Indigenous constituents, internet services are stuck in the 1990s because telecom companies don't want to serve them. I, along with my colleagues, launched community consultations to address and provide solutions to this critical issue. We call on the government to outline and implement a concrete action plan to address internet connectivity deficits between rural and urban Canada. This is an issue I will continue to press on until results are achieved. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We'll now go on to Mr. McLeod. Mr. McLeod.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has been awarded its first ever Equator Prize from the United Nations Development Program. Congratulations to Lutsuke Dene First Nation and the Northwest Territories Métis Nation, with support from Dene Nukwan First Nations and the Yellowknives Dene First Nations, for the establishment of the Tai Dene Nene Territorial Protected Area. 14,000 square kilometers of the most beautiful land and waters you'll find anywhere on Earth, Mr. Speaker. I would also like to thank the previous Minister of Environment for securing Canada's $7.9 million commitment, along with their visit to celebrate the new park last year. The award is given to groups who have exemplified actions to protect critical ecosystems and biodiversity for generations to come, and to show how Indigenous peoples and local communities have confronted legacies of a disadvantage and discrimination in support of their communities and the world at large. Congratulations to Lutsuke.
We'll now go to Ms. Falk. Ms. Falk.
Mr. Chair, the Liberal government has tabled $87 billion in spending and allocated just 4 hours for Parliament to study, debate, and pass it. The allocated time is wholly inadequate. Canadians deserve to know how that money is being spent. They deserve to know that this government spending was scrutinized and passed through the rigors of Parliament. Because, Mr. Chair, it is Canadian taxpayers of today and tomorrow who will have the responsibility to pay for this government spending. It is Canadian workers and businesses who will have to do the hard work of rebuilding our economy. And it is real Canadians who fall through the cracks when this Liberal government's programs fail to meet their intended goals. A rubber stamp under the guise of health and safety is not democracy. Canadians are owed better. Just as we gather 4 days a week for a hybrid committee meeting, parliamentarians can gather to do the full scope of the work that Canadians elected us to do. Thank you.
Nous allons maintenant continuer.
We will now continue with Mr. Godin. Mr. Speaker, our planet has been hit by a pandemic caused by COVID-19, and our daily lives have been turned upside down. I think of our seniors, those gems of human beings who have built our country. You have had to go through an extremely demanding lockdown, and you've had to sacrifice time with your loved ones. Our students have also had to adapt. Their academic year has been hit hard. In particular, our graduates who dreamed of grad and saw that dream dashed. The future is yours. Keep on chasing your dreams. To all the essential workers and all social service organizations, you are making a difference. We are all responsible for doing what's right, to follow the rules, and the results are there in the riding. I would like to say how much I'm proud of you and how proud I am to represent you here in Canada's Parliament. Thank you, one and all. You make Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier great. You have shown resilience, creativity, innovation, and solidarity. Bravo. Together, we will get through this and come out stronger.
We'll now continue with Ms. Gazan. Ms. Gazan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I rise to honor Justice for Black Lives Winnipeg, led by women and non-binary individuals who stood together and mobilized our city to state clearly, we will not stand by and stay silent in the face of police brutality. We will not stand by in the face of systemic racism. We will not stand by while we witness our bodies being abused by centuries of racism supported through legislations that has left us vulnerable at the hands of those who abuse their power. We will speak out against police violence. We will speak out against systemic racism. We will join together to ensure laws are instated that are designed to protect us, not abuse us. We will call out those who abuse their power. We will rise. We will rise. We will rise. And to all the women and non-binary folks who are standing, I say to you, let's continue to sound our voices in solidarity and support for one another until Indigenous and Black lives are honored and respected. Our liberation is intertwined. Solidarity.
We will now move on to Ms. de Bellefeuille. Mr. Speaker, it's not the time for governments to relax measures to fight COVID-19, and yet these past few days have shown that we are dealing with a reckless Prime Minister. First, he shut down Parliament so as not to be held accountable by the opposition, when in fact the government should be helping to reopen the economy. He's refusing to give an economic update as opposed to what the parliamentary budget officer has called for. We need to know how much room we have if there is a second wave. He refuses to meet premiers on no strings attached healthcare transfers, when in fact Quebec needs money to hire new caregivers before the second wave hits. He also refuses to negotiate with any political party to adopt his bill as if he was at the head of a majority government. This is not the time to be reckless. Governing means planning, and I would ask the Prime Minister to make other decisions.
Mr. Chair, I rise to give thanks and recognition to the contributions of many businesses and organizations across my riding of Edmonton Mill Woods that have stepped up in a major way during this pandemic. I joined my friends in the Filipino community that partnered with Millwoods Cavalry Church to deliver care packages for seniors. Verinder Buller and his Green Scholars of Alberta team and Dele Punjab restaurant provided thousands of free meals. Sikh Youth Edmonton delivered free groceries to our families, seniors, and students. Edmonton Towing and its full team with Duk Nirvan Gurdwara prepared food packages for any truckers that were coming through Edmonton. The Bharatiya Cultural Society Hindu Temple provided free meals to anyone who needed them. Punjab Insurance and Punjab chain of restaurants provided free meals in downtown Edmonton. And of course, the staff, nurses, and doctors at Grey Nuns Hospital in the heart of Millwoods have been keeping people safe and healthy. I want to thank our Millwoods community as a whole for their continued strength, resilience, and compassion as we move forward together.
We'll now proceed to Mr. Fonseca. Mr. Fonseca.
Today is Portugal Day, celebrated both in Portugal and around the world by Portuguese. In Canada, June's been recognized as Portuguese Heritage Month. We're truly happy to recognize the great contributions made by Canadians of Portuguese descent. This year's a difficult one, though, for all of us, including our Portuguese diaspora community across the globe that is deeply affected by the COVID situation. Our prayers and well wishes are with everyone. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our Luso community of over 500,000 members in Canada from coast to coast for staying strong during these difficult times. Your warmth, hard work, and team spirit resonate well across my riding of Mississauga East Cooksville and globally. As a Portuguese immigrant who came to Canada at the age of 2 with my family, I know this year will be a lot different from previous years. I encourage all of you to stay safe and enjoy a Portuguese meal. And please continue to support our local businesses. Viva Canada! Viva Portugal! Obrigado!
We will now move to questions for the ministers.
Allow employees to provide support, provide support for sitting to substitute each other very safely. The first question goes to the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Scheer. Mr. Scheer.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is doing everything he can to avoid accountability. He refuses to table a budget. He refuses to table an economic update. And he is not letting the House of Commons do its job. Will he at least provide extra funding to the Auditor General so the government expenditures can be reviewed more closely? The Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, not only are we tabling a bill this afternoon to help Canadians with the emergency response benefit, but we are asking opposition parties to vote on this measure, and I hope opposition parties will allow a vote to happen and a debate to happen on this bill today. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister wants parliamentarians to vote on aspects of the government spending. We want the Auditor General to be able to examine that government spending. In fact, under this government, the Auditor General has had to do more with less, and her ability to conduct audits is being affected. The Auditor General has indicated that they will be able to do half as many audits despite an almost doubling in the size of government spending. Simple question, yes or no. Will the Prime Minister give the Auditor General the money she needs to do her job?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we worked with the Auditor General to increase the funding of the Auditor General's office in 2018-2019. An additional equivalent of 38 full-time staff was added because we will support the Auditor General, unlike the Conservative government that fired 60 people from the Auditor General's office. But we are now proposing that we sit down to debate on legislation this afternoon. I certainly hope that the members opposite will vote for debate.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Scheer.
Again, is engaged in revisionist history. He well knows that it was the Auditor General's office who volunteered to make administrative efficiencies that did not affect the ability to do the job. In fact, I have a quote here from the Interim Auditor General, John Wiersma, who said, "We would not have proposed this if we didn't think it was the right thing to do and that we'd be able to carry out our role for Parliament." It is only this government's refusal to grant that extra funding that is hampering the ability of the Auditor General to give Canadians the answers they deserve. And We wonder why, Mr. Speaker. This is the government that cannot explain where 20,000 infrastructure projects went, where $5 billion of supposed infrastructure investments has gone. They can't identify it. And of course, the $35 billion infrastructure bank, which has completed precisely 0 projects. So is that the reason why the Prime Minister is so intent on withholding the funds from the Auditor General?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, talking of revisionist history, Stephen Harper's Conservatives cut $6.5 million from the Auditor General's budget and fired 60 staff. On the contrary, we worked with the Auditor General's office and increased their funding and added the equivalent of 38 new full-time staff. We will continue to demonstrate openness and transparency. We will continue to respect the officers of Parliament that the Conservatives in their time of office showed no respect for. We will continue to move forward in a way that, for example, is proposing debate and voting on important legislation to help Canadians this afternoon, that the Conservatives don't seem to want that debate or that vote.
Mr. Speaker, it's no surprise that the Prime Minister likes to reach back into history before the 2015 election to justify his position, say, because that was the only time, the 2015 election was the only time that he got more votes than the Conservative Party, Mr. Speaker. So I understand why he likes to live in the past. But here is a quote from him. 10 years ago, we were completing about 27 performance audits every year. With our current resources, we expect to be able to deliver 14 performance audits, half the number of audits despite a massive explosion in government spending. So yes or no, simple question. The Auditor General's office has requested more funds to be able to do the job that Canadians expect to be done. Yes or no, will the Prime Minister give those additional funds to the Auditor General's office?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we very much look forward to working with the new Auditor General to ensure that her office has the ability to continue on the important audits and transparency measures that are foundational to our institutions. Speaking of foundational to our institutions, Mr. Speaker, this afternoon we're putting forward a bill that will help Canadians right across the country, and we're proposing to debate and vote on that bill, and that is actually something that it looks like the Conservatives and other opposition parties might not want. They have been complaining about having a debate and votes in Parliament, and now they're proposing to not have them. That's a little head-scratching, Mr. Speaker. We hope they're going to help Canadians.
We are now going to move on to Mr. Blanchet. Mr. Blanchet, thank you very much, Chair. We are perhaps, well, we have an opportunity to replace a problem with an opportunity. This morning, we've seen many groups and organizations who represent disabled people. Their concern is that the bill that will be cod liver oil in the chocolate pudding, they think that they're in favor of helping people who are disabled, but this bill can be should be split up, and we should be able to vote on different sections of it. They think that they could just... Is he willing to split up this bill so that we could all together help people who are disabled? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, Chair, the bill that we're going to propose this afternoon will help people who live with a handicap, and we can all recognize that's important. All parties should be open to that. We're also going to give more flexibility to the CERB to allow for a 2-week period rather than just a 4-week one. And we're also going to extend the scope of the wage subsidy so that more companies can use it. So I'm always ready to work with opposition members to ensure that we can adopt these measures, all of them or some of them. We want to help Canadians, and we're looking forward to the debate and vote on this later today. Mr. Blanchet. Chair, may God bless you. All these measures, or some of them, a few of them, that means we're not going to adopt them all at once. Does that mean we're going to split up the bill? Can the Prime Minister confirm that he will split this bill so we can help the various components that have nothing to do with each other, so we can vote on them distinctly to improve them, as is our mandate? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Our objective, Chair, on this side of the House is to help Canadians, as all members of this House want to. We've proposed several measures that will concretely help Canadians. Yes, those who are disabled, also companies will be helped. If they can't access the wage subsidy, they should be able to do so. And we're going to make the CERB more flexible. And I look forward to continue these discussions. Mr. Blanchet, we got nearly almost to something clear, but we have to look at, yes, we do have to look at the CERB. We want to transform this program, even though they don't want to admit they didn't make it easier for people to return to the workforce. So we really need to look at this. We don't need to spend 8 months on this. This could be done in a couple hours. But when the government says we have to vote on this, they mean rubber stamp everything. We should be able to debate things, have discussions, and improve things. I remember the election night, which is better than a hockey game. The Honourable Minister. Chair, we're not just proposing a vote on this legislation this afternoon. Yes, we're going to debate it as well. That is the role and the responsibility we all have in the House. We have to change ideas, propose ideas, and work together to help Canadians. And that's exactly what we're proposing this afternoon, with help for disabled Canadians, with help and more flexibility for the CERB, and extending the wage subsidy to more companies. And I look forward to debating this with my colleagues across the way. Mr. Blanchet, 43 seconds. Okay, so quite involuntarily, I wouldn't allow the Prime Minister to mislead people. We discuss a bill, there's a first reading, it goes to committee. Well, we could all do this quickly, but we have to be able to make amendments and improve the legislation. That's how things work normally. And this government is acting as if they're a majority government, but they're not. We need to follow the parliamentary process and work properly with a vote at the end that will probably get the support of the majority of MPs and not just the support of the Prime Minister. Chair, my honourable colleague seems to forget that we're in the midst of a pandemic right now. We're facing a COVID-19 crisis, which means we have to act differently. And 4 days ago, we gave them the bill. We gave the opposition parties the text, and so that we've been working for hours over the past 4 days to make amendments if they propose them. And that is how we can act quickly to help Canadians during this crisis, and that's what we're going to continue to do. We're going to move on to Mr. Singh now. Thank you very much, Chair. Can the Prime Minister commit today, clearly and directly, to continuing the CERB for families who are in need? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Chair, we're proposing a bill this afternoon that will directly help Canadians who have disabilities, extend the wage subsidy, and give more flexibility to CERB. So I hope we'll be able to continue. Mr. Singh.
Extend the CERB for families in need, yes or no?
Prime Minister.
As I said, Mr. Speaker, discussions are ongoing on that, but I can assure Canadians we will continue to be there for them and support them as
we'll go back to Mr. Singh. Mr. Singh.
Now, a family that needs to buy groceries can't take those pretty words and buy groceries with them. We're asking the Prime Minister to extend the CERB for families in need. Will the Prime Minister do that, yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, we will continue to be there for Canadians in the right way. We are engaged with stakeholders, with opposition parties, with Canadians to ensure that we continue to support them the way they need to be.
Mr. Singh.
Mr. Speaker, I can tell you what the right way is. Don from Burnaby sent me a note saying he is an arts worker. There is no forecast for his job to be reopened. He is right now dependent on the CERB. He wants to go back to work, but there's no work. And he sent an email saying that he's faced with the grim reality, his words, and that he's frightened that if the CERB runs out, which is planned to run out at the end of this month, then he will have no way to afford to make ends meet. Will the Prime Minister extend the CERB so Don does not have to live in fear?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
As I said, and as we have been from the beginning, we will continue to be there to support Canadians who need it. But, Mr. Speaker, the member opposite is not actually looking at the fact that we are proposing 3 significant helps for Canadians this afternoon. For Canadians with disabilities, expanding the wage subsidy for more businesses, creating flexibility for the CERB, and he doesn't even want to debate those things. He doesn't want to be even voting on them. Mr. Speaker, will the NDP allow us to move forward on these important measures for Canadians?
Mr. Singh.
Let's talk about those measures. One of the things that we asked the government to do 5 weeks ago was to bring in help for Canadians living with disabilities. Now, the government's plan is only going to help 40% of Canadians living with disabilities. Will the government commit to helping all Canadians living with disabilities and propose a plan that will do so?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
See, Mr. Speaker, the NDP seems to have decided that rather than help 40% or a significant proportion of people with disabilities, he wants to help none of them because he's not going to allow this debate to move forward on this bill. That's unfortunate, Mr. Speaker. We're always happy to look at how we can do more. We have demonstrated from the beginning that we want to do more for Canadians, and I look forward to working with the NDP and hoping they change their mind and allow us to have an important
I'll go back to Mr. Singh. Mr. Singh.
Well, I appreciate that the Prime Minister accepts that his plan only helps 40% of Canadians living with disabilities. Let's talk about the 60% that aren't being helped. Those are veterans living with disabilities, those who receive CPP, those who receive disability payments. Often, it's the poorest of Canadians living with disabilities that won't be helped with the plan that the government's proposing. Will the government help all Canadians living with disabilities?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our proposal will help 100% of Canadians who receive the disability tax credit, including many veterans. The fact is we are there to support the disability community. We are there to support Canadians with disabilities. Why is the NDP not allowing us to move forward on debating and voting on this important legislation?
Mr. Singh, we have 43 seconds for a question and answer.
That's the exact problem with the Liberal proposal. It's a tax credit approach which excludes the vast majority of Canadians living with disabilities. That is the wrong approach. We made it very clear. If this government extends CERB, if they ensure that there's no penalties on those who are desperate and needed help, and if they help all Canadians, we will move forward. All Canadians living with disabilities, will the government do that?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I said from the beginning, we look forward to continuing to work with the members opposite to improve help to Canadians, to keep going moving forward to help the Canadians. But, Mr. Speaker, we need the opposition parties to actually choose to help Canadians and not to play political games. And I hope we're going to be able to actually have a debate and a vote on this important legislation this afternoon.
We're now going to take a short pause to allow staff to change places or change up in a safe way, respecting COVID-19 procedure.
Yeah, you guys like it when I'm like that. I'm not playing to you. I have your votes already.
Proud of me, Jeremy? I didn't forget. Whoops, we're on. Mike's on.
Good to go.
We're good to go. Good to go? Very good. Nous allons maintenant...
We're now going to continue with Mr. Reyes. Mr. Reyes? Chair, can the Prime Minister tell us if we are going to see an economic update by end June? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Chair, I'd like to thank the member for his question. Of course, it's very important to be transparent, and when the situation is stable, we're going back to Mr. Reyes now. Mr. Reyes, Chair, provinces are tabling economic updates and are working on this by the end of June in most provinces in Canada. How come the government cannot do the same thing? The Honourable Minister. Chair, I appreciate that's important to be transparent, and that is why we're looking every day as to how we can explain our investments, and every day we'll be looking at how we can to continue to be transparent with Canadians. Mr. Reyes. Chair, the Liberal government has announced hundreds of billions in new spending throughout this pandemic, but once again refuses today to table an economic update to be transparent with Canadians. During a crisis, oversight is more important than ever. I repeat my question. Provinces are doing this. How come this government won't table an economic update by end June? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Chair, every day we explain our economic situation with the investments we're making and changes to investment levels with the various programs to improve the situation of Canadians throughout this pandemic. We are going to continue our approach of being transparent. Mr. Reyes. Mr. Chair, Minister, the Parliamentary Budget Officer himself can't understand why the government won't table an economic update. Provinces are able to do so. How come this government, you as a minister, how come you're not listening to the PBO, who is an independent agent and who is asking for an economic update? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Chair, we are going to continue our approach, which is transparent. We know it's very hard to make forecasts with such a dynamic situation, so our approach of giving information every day, well, we're going to pursue this very transparent approach with respect to our investments. Mr. Reyes, it's incredible when I hear the Minister speak and the Prime Minister. I feel like I'm hearing a toddler and their terrible twos just saying no, no, no. So during a crisis, we need an economic update. Opposition parties, experts, scientists are all asking for one. And when they tell people to listen to these people, but when they don't think like them, it doesn't work. So the PBO is asking for one. How come the Minister of Finance does not want to table an economic update so that all the members of this House can do their oversight work? The Honourable Minister. Chair, I'm going to continue to table information every day with our measures, with our investments. That's very important. And of course, forecasts are very tough right now. But when the situation will be more stable, we will be able to provide more information to Canadians. But every day we'll be changing and ensuring that we give the necessary information to make our decisions so that Canadians can understand our situation. Mr. Reyes, 45 seconds. Chair, a month ago, the Prime Minister ceremoniously announced the $40,000 emergency loan would be more flexible for companies so that sole proprietors and companies that pay themselves in dividends would be eligible. Now, entrepreneurs are still running up against their financial institutions to have access to this, and information is not available on the official website. And officials even confirmed on June 2nd to me that they don't have this information. The finance minister says he wants to act quickly to help companies, but how come after 4 weeks we still can't see information that the minister provided us from his home? The Honourable Minister. Chair, throughout this crisis, we've been listening to small businesses and entrepreneurs across the country, and we've answered them. We extended the eligibility criteria for this program, and we included many small companies and companies that earning less than $20,000. Our criteria were adapted to offer this program, and we're working 24/7 to quickly respond to the needs of small businesses across the country.
To Mr. Allison. Mr. Allison.
Mr. Chair, Canada's unemployment rate stands at 13.7%. That's the highest it's been in almost 4 decades. Many industries like travel, hospitality, and tourism are getting crushed. My question is, as we rely on a lot of hospitality and tourism in Niagara, and particularly my riding of Niagara West, can the government tell us what their plans are to help travel, hospitality, and tourism industry that so many of my constituents depend on?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to my colleague for his important question. I had a good conversation with the Mayor of Niagara Falls recently, and we believe the importance of the tourism sector. That's exactly why we've extended the wage subsidy until the end of August, that there is the CEBA loan, the $40,000 loans, and that also there's funding through FedDev in my colleague's region. If he has clear, specific projects in the tourism sector that he needs help with, well, please come and see me and let's have a conversation.
Mr. Allison.
Mr. Chair, the message from the President and CEO of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, Parents Beatty, and also other industries is that we need a clear and coherent plan from this government because there's a whole hodgepodge of regulations and what was going to happen in terms of a strategy. And what I'd ask the government is that we need a strategy that reflects local conditions, that is consistent and has a clear timeline so that businesses can begin to open safely and with confidence. What's the government doing to make this happen?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we absolutely agree. It is important for businesses to have an understanding of the programs that we've put in place. We have been consulting with businesses on the appropriate way to extend the wage subsidy so that we can continue to support businesses as they turn towards a safe restart. We've also looked very carefully at how we can ensure that the programs we've put forward.
Go back to Mr. Allison. Mr. Allison.
Mr. Chair, this government has come way short in meeting the Canadian demand for personal protective equipment. Some equipment procured from overseas has been substandard and couldn't be used. And because of this shortage, and in my riding of Niagara West, dentists have to pay up to 10 times the amount for the N95 mask. So compared to early March, when will the government finally begin to produce enough PPE in Canada to meet Canadian demand?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for his question. We have mobilized over 700 Canadian companies to help them retool and rescale their efforts to make more personal protective equipment in Canada. It's part of the Made in Canada initiative, and we're going to continue to work with industry to build up domestic capacity.
Mr. Allison.
Global News is reporting that Canada is struggling to secure a reliable source of PPE. And what's the evidence of this? Well, we know the government procured 10 million substandard N95 masks that couldn't be used. Masks were sent back to suppliers for having flaws. We've received moldy swabs to be used in COVID-19 tests. Planes are arriving empty and should have been filled with PPE. And we'll receive less than 5% of our total order of gloves. It's clear Canada needs to rely on Canada for PPE. When will this government finally begin to take PPE equipment issues seriously and make enough in Canada to meet demands by Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member's questions were tainted with inaccuracies. I would like to specify that regarding the flights that returned from China without federal cargo, Air Canada did reimburse the federal government for that amount. In addition, with regards to the N95 masks that were referenced, the Government of Canada will not pay for masks that it does not use. And furthermore, as my colleague Minister Baines just stated, we are mobilizing and retooling domestic industry. Over half of the face shields that we have received were produced in Canada, Mr. Speaker.
We'll now go back to Mr. Allison. Mr. Allison.
In a time when the Prime Minister has ordered Canadians to stay home and businesses remain closed, in a time when Canadians have had to say goodbye to their relatives over Skype, in a time when Canadians are not allowed to get married, in a time when Canadians are getting fined by taking their kids to the park, in a time when restaurants are being fined $800 for allowing customers to eat outside for not being socially distanced. In these times, the Prime Minister decided to attend a mass gathering with thousands of people while not social distancing. Mr. Speaker, why is it that there seems to be one set of rules in this country for some people, but not a different set for the Prime Minister? Why the double standard?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And as the member knows, this country has been gripped with the need to stand up with each other to fight the experience of racism that so many of Canadians live with, so many of our American cousins live with. As the member knows, local public health sets advice for regions that he's specified, and I would encourage all Canadians to check with local public health advice before they resume activities.
Now we'll go to Mr. Chu. Mr. Chu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Many Canadian veterans are noticing that medical providers are increasing their cost. Everything gets more expensive these days, medicine, and etc. It can take upwards of a year for Veteran Affairs to adjust their rate scale to compensate, and they do not allow for retroactive reimbursement. What are the government's actions to alleviate this hardship for our men and women who stood guard for this country, our veterans?
The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister. Maybe try unmuting. Is the mute on?
I apologize, Mr. Chair. I had a little trouble with the technicalities. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, or Mr. Chair, when we inherited the government, there was Veterans Affairs needed a lot of support from government. In fact, at that time, we invested $10 billion to make sure that Veterans Affairs was put in place and that we could provide the appropriate support for veterans, like Pension for Life, Center of Excellence for PTSD, Center of Excellence for Pain. All of these things are so important. And we have to realize government previously.
We'll now go back to Mr. Chu. Mr. Chu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the Minister for answering or responding to my question, although he really did not provide an answer, in my humble opinion. Part of the side effect of spending hundreds of millions of dollars is inflation. My constituents in Stevens and Richmond East are overwhelmingly finding this government support for seniors inadequate. The opposition has put forward clear proposals such as a one-time tax-free withdrawal being allowed for an RSP or RRIF. So far, the government has not taken any action on this. Why is the government ignoring suggestions to help Canadian seniors?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much. I want seniors to know that they are not alone. To help preserve the Registered Retirement Income Fund's assets, we are reducing the minimum withdrawals by 25% for 2020. We're also providing direct financial support so that seniors can get the help that they need now. As the market is volatile during this time, we continue to look at all the ways that we can best help seniors during this difficult time. Thank you.
Mr. Chu.
Mr. Chair, the Hong Kong government has arrested 9,000 civilians just in the past year. This is equivalent to the arrest of 42,000 people proportional to Canada's population. It is anticipated that more unjust incarcerations will occur as Beijing is imposing the national security law in Hong Kong. I asked the minister, has our government started preparing a list of names for Magnitsky-style sanction? Yes or no, please?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as we have said with our allies, we are deeply concerned with Beijing's decision to impose a national security law on Hong Kong. With hundreds of thousands of Canadians living in Hong Kong, we have a vested interest in its stability and prosperity, the foundation of which are Hong Kong's relative autonomy and basic freedoms. The proposed law would also undermine the one country, two systems framework.
Mr. Chu.
I thank the Minister for responding again. However, the words of mouth is not enough. It's time for action because the Chinese embassy has said in response to Canada's expressed concern that they deplore, that they reject and condemn our response and our concern thus far. What are the conditions of this government using Magnitsky sanctions? Should China continue to incarcerate Canadians and jeopardize the human rights of its citizens?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have been very clear. We will continue to encourage all parties to engage in peaceful and meaningful dialogue to address the legitimate concerns expressed by the Hong Kong population. Canada will always support and promote freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and freedom of the press around the world.
Mr. Chu, we have about 22 seconds, so a very quick question and hopefully a very quick answer.
Okay, quick question. The Communist Chinese government has lied about COVID-19. They have issued both statements against China, against Canada, and they have yet to release the 2 Canadians being held hostage. My constituents are concerned over this. When will this government listen to Canadians and call for a stronger, more effective, and truly independent international investigation into COVID-19's origin?
The Honourable Minister, in 22 seconds or less, please.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we are dealing with a global pandemic, COVID-19. It is critically important that all countries in the world work together in a transparent, open, and respectful manner so that we understand what is going on and how we can bring it to an end as quickly as possible.
The next question will come from Ms. Gallant. Ms. Gallant.
Mr. Chair, if the government orders someone who's been exposed to a confirmed COVID case into a 14-day quarantine, why won't the government allow them to take an antibody test to lift the quarantine so they can go back to work?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As the member opposite may or may not know, in fact, testing strategies are determined by provinces and territories. Furthermore, the testing has to be done at the right point in time of a particular person.
Back to Ms. Gallant. Ms. Gallant.
Mr. Speaker, there have already been some tests that have been approved. My friend here and colleague, Colin Carey from the constituency of Oshawa has a constituent who has a test, it's 90% accurate, and it's being sold to the United States and other countries. Why won't they provide a DIN number to it so Canadians have access to it as well, regardless of which province or territory they live in?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think the member is talking about two separate things. Any test kit that would be approved by Health Canada would be accessible to wherever that company chose to market that test kit. Furthermore, it's really important that test kits that are approved by Health Canada have accuracy and have been tested for its rigor in the ability to provide the people who are using that test credible and accurate information.
We'll go back to Ms. Gallant. Ms. Gallant.
Speaker, the test is proven to identify whether or not the individual has antibodies to an accuracy rate of 90%. Why won't she allow it to be used here?
Well, Minister.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'm happy to follow up with the member opposite's office when she is able to provide me the name of the company. As you can imagine, there are many vendors trying.
Back to Ms. Gallant. Ms. Gallant.
How long will it take for an antibody test to be approved by this government once you have the name of the company and the test and the evidence in front of you?
Before we go to the Honourable Minister, I just want to remind the Honourable members to place their questions through the chair and not directly. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And we have an expedited process that could be as rapid as 5 to 7 days, depending on the accuracy of the tests and the information supplied by the vendor.
Ms. Gallant.
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, will Health Canada use reputable data from other countries to speed their determinations about antibody effectiveness, or just continue to withhold access?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Canadians expect us at Health Canada to ensure the accuracy and the safety of all equipment approved for use in Canada.
Ms. Gallant.
So, Mr. Chairman, if the minister can approve tests and studies within 5 days, why is it taking over 30? Why is it taking over 60? Why is it taking over 90 days to approve an antibody test that exists?
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the member opposite's interest in urgent and quick approvals. However, sometimes, depending on the company, there may be further questions and further tests that need to be run to ensure the accuracy or safety of that equipment, should she wish me to check into the process for a particular...
Ms. Gallant.
Have officials provided the government with a target for daily antibody tests to complete an initial survey or the initial phase of a study?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I assume the member opposite is talking about the work of the Immunity Task Force, which is, as you know, a group of scientists that have been funded by the Government of Canada.
We'll go back to Ms. Gallant. Ms. Gallant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, would the minister please provide the names of the people on that task force to which she just referred?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I will forward those names to the member opposite's office.
And I hope that will be within the next 2 days or so, and not wait until after the crisis has passed, Mr. Chairman. Why isn't the Prime Minister showing as much fervour for antibody testing as he is for getting a vaccine on the market?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I reject the premise of that question. In fact, the Prime Minister has shown fervour for all aspects of dealing with coronavirus from the very inception of the virus on the world stage, and to allege otherwise is quite disingenuous.
We'll go on to Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly.
When will the government give the Auditor General the funds that she needs to do her job?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Speaker. First, I would like to offer my congratulations to the new Auditor General for her appointment. I would also like, on behalf of the government...
Go to Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly.
I share in the Minister's wish to congratulate the new Auditor General on her position, and now I ask him again, when will he give her the funds she needs to do her job?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker, for the question. Her role is essential to our democracy, and we are eager to work with her. She's more than welcome to share her concern directly with the government, and I can assure her that my...
To Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly.
Well, Mr. Chair, I didn't ask him if he would like to work with the Auditor General. I asked him if he will give the Auditor General the money that she needs to do her job.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government has added 38 permanent staff positions to her office, while the Conservative government, under their leadership, cut the funding for more than 60...
To Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker, through you, I caution the minister to not mislead this House. He will, if he will look at the transcripts of committee at the time, he will know that it was the Auditor General's decision to reduce their own budget. The Conservatives did not cut positions. That is a matter of fact. And the point is that the Auditor General now does not have the money to do her job. She's cut performance audits. She has stopped work on performance audits. When will this government give the Auditor General the money that she needs to do her job?
The Honourable Minister.
Us, 38 new positions, Mr. Speaker. Them, 60 positions less.
Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Speaker, this government has drastically expanded its spending. It is avoiding accountability every way it can. The Finance Committee yesterday, with the support of Liberal backbench MPs that are on that committee, unanimously passed a motion to fund the Auditor General in full so that her office can do her job. If this minister will not listen to me, will he at least listen to his own backbenchers?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. Our government is fully committed to supporting the important and ongoing work of the Auditor General, an independent officer of Parliament. If the Auditor General identifies the need for additional resources, we will work with the Office of the Auditor General to ensure that they have all the resources they need to continue fulfilling their mandate efficiently and effectively.
Right on. We'll now go back to Mr. Kelly.
The Auditor General has consistently, since 2018, told this government that the office doesn't have enough funds. It's not a mystery. The Auditor General has told the committee, has told the Public Accounts Committee, that it cannot do its job. It's the first time in history that the Auditor General has had to tell public accounts that they don't have the resources to do their job. It's not a matter of if the Auditor General needs more funds. The Auditor General couldn't be more clear. So when will this government actually do the right thing and fully fund the Office of the Auditor General?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, maybe I'm not making myself clear in English. I will switch to my native tongue, French. It has become clearer.
If the Auditor General says she needs additional resources, we will work with her to ensure that her office will continue to uphold her mandate in an efficient and effective manner. Further, our government has worked with the Auditor General to increase funding levels in 2018-2019. Thanks to this increase, the office has added 38 new positions, full-time employees in his team under our mandate.
Mr. Chair, it's not an if. This isn't an if situation. The Auditor General has already told this government that her office does not have funds. This has been ongoing since 2018. So I would ask the minister to please stop with the platitudes and actually just say yes or no. Will the government give the Auditor General the money that the Auditor General has already asked for?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, we have already increased the budget of the Office of the Auditor General in the 2018-2019 period, Mr. Speaker.
Now, before we go, we're just going to suspend for a second to bring on the next chair. Madam Chair.
We're waiting. Oh, sorry, we're suspended. They're exchanging calls.
Now, it's not going to be a dispute over the facts of it.
It's okay. C'est bon? So, yes, there's a point of order. Yes.
Madam Chair, I know that no member would knowingly mislead the House, and no member wants to do that, and it's always customary to give members a chance to correct the record. And I would call upon the minister now, and perhaps the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister, in fact, misled the House in response to his question. So I have here the transcripts from the Public Accounts Committee that will confirm that the...
This is beginning to sound a bit like debate. I think we'll proceed. We'll now go to...
We will now go to Mr. Sainte-Marie. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to take this opportunity to wish you a happy Portugal Day, and I will share my time with my colleague and friend, the member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Now, Quebec will need to spend an extra $3 billion in health-related COVID costs, but Ottawa will only give it $115 million. That's not even 4%. Will the government admit that is not enough? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker. As the member opposite knows, we invested an initial $500 million in transfers to provinces and territories to manage the extreme pressure on the healthcare systems as a result of supporting people living with COVID and also preventing COVID. We want to thank the provinces and territories for the work, and as the member opposite knows, we'll continue to be there for the provinces and territories. This is a significant transfer, and we thank
Monsieur Sainte-Marie.
The member for Sainte-Marie, Mr. Sainte-Marie. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The minister says it's an important transfer. Yes, it's a lot of money, $115 million for Quebec, but that's not even 4%. Does the minister recognize that it will take much more than that? The Honourable Minister. From the outset, we have worked with the provinces and territories to respond to the crisis. We increased health transfers, provided personal protective equipment, and we responded to all requests. And it's thanks to that collaboration that we were able to achieve as much progress in the fight against COVID as we did. And we have created good relations between the federal government and the provinces. Mr. Sainte-Marie. Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, I'd like to say to the minister that when she moved her microphone, it was harder to hear her. There's no squabbling between provinces. The fact that there are needs, the federal government is not meeting those needs, and we have to act now. We have to act now before a potential second wave. What we're seeing today are the results of massive disinvestment in the healthcare sector on the part of the federal government. That's not good enough. Will the government commit to increasing support to the healthcare sector and to hold a premier's meeting with the federal government by September on healthcare transfers? A quick answer on the part of the minister, please. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker. In respect to the transfer to provinces and territories, the member opposite knows that our government in our last mandate significantly increased transfers to provinces and territories for health services, including mental health and home care services. In fact, the funding that we're providing is in addition to $40 billion that were transferred.
Monsieur Brunel-Duceppe.
Mr. Brunel-Duceppe. Thank you, Madam Speaker. We learned today in La Presse that the government would extend the mission of the CAF in nursing homes. Can the minister confirm this? And that the 500 troops will indeed stay in Quebec's nursing homes at the request of the government of Quebec? The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, and let me assure the member that when Quebec made a request for assistance at the beginning of April, we answered the call. And when they asked for an extension of that, we said we would continue to commit to provide that assistance. And I've had conversation with my counterpart, Minister Guilbeault, in Quebec today, and we have renewed our commitment to continue to provide assistance. That assistance can take additional forms, including involving the Canadian Red Cross, but we remain committed to providing the assistance that Quebec needs.
Mr. Brunel-Duceppe, yes, I understand that we are still negotiating with the government of Quebec despite the needs on the ground. The mission is supposed to end this Friday, and now's not the time to negotiate. It's the time to make sure that the troops will stay in nursing homes until new orderlies are trained and as long as needed in Quebec. So, can the minister confirm that this mission will indeed be extended? The Honourable Minister.
Again, Madam Speaker, and I'd like to assure this House that we have assured Quebec that the Canadian Armed Forces will continue to provide support until such time as other trained professional people are able to do that job. We're working very hard with the province of Quebec, working with the Canadian Armed Forces and the Canadian Red Cross. We will be there for Quebecers because they need our help, and as long as they need our help, we'll be there to support them.
Mr. Brunel-Duceppe. Well, this is not a cat and mouse game. We just want to make sure that Quebec gets what it needs. We pay 23% of the Canadian Armed Forces' budget. In Quebec, more than 5,000 people have died of COVID-19. 90% of them were seniors living in nursing and retirement homes. Keeping the troops there is vital. They're doing extraordinary and essential work. So will the mission be extended? Can the minister confirm that now and end this unsettling uncertainty for both the troops and the healthcare workers? The Honourable Minister.
Clear. We have made a commitment to the province of Quebec that we will continue to provide that support until the middle of September, exactly as they have requested. But we are also working to ensuring that we have a sustainable, effective solution to the requests that Quebec has made. And so we're working with the province of Quebec, the Canadian Armed Forces, and the Canadian Red Cross to ensure that the help that is needed is there.
Brian May. You are on mute. You are on mute.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now? Fantastic. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you all today. I will be sharing my time with my colleague, the Member of Parliament from Scarborough North. Madam Chair, COVID-19 continues to create challenges for all Canadians, including those with disabilities, and exacerbate those experienced by Canadians with disabilities. As we mark the end of National Accessibility Week, I would like to remind my colleagues that our commitment to making Canada more inclusive and equitable is ongoing, including our passing of the Accessible Canada Act. Would the Minister inform the House about the government's plans to support Canadians with disabilities who are experiencing increased costs due to COVID-19? Thank you, Madam Chair.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, last week was the first National Accessibility Week that was legislated under the historic Accessible Canada Act, and I thank every party in this House for the consent they gave to that legislation. I'm hoping we have the same spirit of camaraderie for people with disabilities this afternoon. Since the beginning, Madam Speaker, we've taken a disability inclusion approach on how we support people with disabilities in this time of pandemic, including the establishment of our COVID-19 Disability Advisory Group, which has given us invaluable advice, and I thank them so much for their contributions to our efforts. Last week, we announced a suite of measures to support people with disabilities that complement existing measures that are in place. This includes a one-time payment to 1.25 million citizens with disabilities of $600, which again is the subject matter of the legislation this afternoon, as well as a $15 million investment in an accessible workplace initiative that will ensure moving forward, as we know, and as we move back into employment situations, will be very tough for people with disabilities. And finally, 5 really exciting accessible technology initiatives, including working on point-of-sale terminals for Canadians who are blind and visually impaired. Thank you.
Very short question, Mr. May.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to thank the Minister, take this opportunity to thank her and all the work that her department is doing to ensure that accessibility is on the forefront of everybody's mind through this crisis. Thank you.
Mr.
Madam Speaker, as humanity battles COVID-19, we are confronted by the stark realities of another disease. On May 25th, George Floyd fell unconscious and died as a police officer knelt on his neck for nearly 9 minutes. This all happened after the 46-year-old black man was handcuffed and put in a position where he could do no harm. In Canada, we have come a long way since Viola Desmond, yet there is much more to do. Anti-Black racism is institutionalized, hidden under dominant narratives of a free and multicultural society. Hatred has no boundaries, whether it is against Black communities or anti-Asian sentiment fueled by COVID-19. The question always is, who is next? We must all stand up against hatred for justice and reconciliation together to dismantle systems of oppression that long remain unquestioned. Recent data from Statistics Canada shows that Canada is failing Black youth, creating the conditions that push them into the justice system. To the Minister of Diversity and Inclusion and Youth, my question is, what is the government doing to address the unique challenges faced by Black youth?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Chair, the member for Scarborough North is absolutely correct. We must all do what we can to stand up against hatred and injustice. We often say that today's youth are not only the leaders of tomorrow, but they are the leaders of today. So we need to equip them for success by investing in youth. According to the 2016 census, Black Canadians accounted for 1.2 million people, and more than a quarter of that population is under the age of 15. Socioeconomic gaps such as employment and education exist between Black and non-Black youth. We need to do better. Our government has brought forward youth so that they can inform the decisions we make. We have Canada's first youth policy, and it was created by youth for youth to ensure that all young people are equipped to live healthy and fulfilling lives and are empowered to create positive change for themselves and their communities. Our government launched the Community Support for Black Canadian Youth program, which supported 56 projects geared to address the unique challenges faced by Black Canadian youth through the development of leadership skills and civic engagement, while empowering them through the promotion of Black history, culture, and identity. To address the challenges of the pandemic, our government has implemented a suite of measures designed to help youth and students, including with employment and service opportunities. My office is working with community organizations who serve Black youth to make sure they too are both aware of and benefiting from these measures.
Ms. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be splitting my time with the member for Timmins James Bay. Schools in many provinces remain closed and many childcare providers want to reopen, but they must reduce their capacity due to COVID-19. Now more than ever, we need universal, publicly funded childcare to restart the economy. Will this government bring in legislation which would enshrine into law access and federal funding to quality, affordable childcare?
The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, we are of course committed to investments in childcare. We have constantly worked with provinces and territories to ensure that we have the supports that we provide the supports that they need to provide quality, affordable, and accessible childcare. We have created since 2015 over 40,000 childcare spaces. We are committed to creating an additional 250,000 before and after school childcare spaces.
Madison?
But the government doesn't seem to understand that this is not universal childcare. During COVID-19, women have lost the majority of jobs. They've taken on the majority of additional childcare responsibilities. Canadian women want and need to return to work, but this government doesn't understand that without affordable childcare, they simply cannot re-enter the workforce. For 26 years, Liberal governments have been promising, but failing to deliver a universal childcare program. Parents are paying the price. How much longer do parents have to wait?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Chair, I want to thank the Honourable Member for the important question. Since 2015, we have created 40,000 affordable, accessible, and quality childcare spaces across the country. We are on track to continue to invest $7.5 billion over 11 years to create additional childcare spaces and support provinces and territories. We're constantly in touch with our counterparts to work to strengthen that sector. We are also keeping our promise and our commitment to create an additional 250,000 spaces. We will be there for parents as they get back to work, and we will continue to reinforce the early learning and childcare sector.
Very, very short question, Ms. Madison, for a very short answer.
Without this childcare and universal childcare, we are crippling our economy. We are not providing an affordable system, and this stops women from returning to work. Instead of helping parents return to work, the government is now bringing forward legislation that's penalizing them. Why is this government looking to sentence mothers and fathers to large jail time and fines when they cannot find the childcare that...
The Honourable Minister for a short answer.
We are committed to the early learning and childcare sector. We will move forward with the creation of an early learning and childcare secretariat. We will continue to invest in this sector. We recognize its importance.
Mr. Angus.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Honored to be here, and I'm hoping that you and your family stay safe at this time. COVID has shaken up Canada's middle class. So my question is for the Minister of Middle Class Prosperity. This morning I spoke with a woman, a businesswoman. She runs her own business, a travel agency, but because of COVID, she has been wiped out. She's on CERB and it's ticking down and there's no work to go back to. So in 4 weeks, she hits the economic wall. Will the minister fight for an extension of CERB so this woman can stay in the middle class?
Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we know how worried Canadians are as they see their final 4-week period of CERB approaching. We're working very hard to ensure that as we move forward, CERB continues to serve an important purpose as we move into economic recovery. I'll note when we created the CERB, there was a different purpose in mind. We were asking people to stay home. Now we're asking people to go back to work if it's safe for them to do so. We're going to make sure that the wage subsidy and the CERB complement each other. And in fact, the measures in today's legislation will help us get the flexibility to be able to do just that. Thank you.
And we did give you a little more time. Mr. Angus.
Well, thank you for that. What I've seen with their legislation today is they're talking about jailing people. I mean, whenever we need a minister of middle-class prosperity in a time of middle-class disparity, and she's talking about middle-class criminality. So let's talk about this again, about people going back to work. I spoke with a 51-year-old bartender. He's a professional. This is his job. There is no job to go back to. So will the minister assure us that this man will be able to stay in the middle class because CERB will still be there in July? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président. Madam Chair, as you know, we've been working since the beginning to help Canadians throughout this crisis. We've put forward programs to help them, and we're going to continue to support families throughout this crisis and after the crisis as well.
Mr. Angus, very, very short comment question.
Well, the issue here is that when COVID hit, millions of Canadians were living in such precarious working conditions. They didn't even have enough money to pay their rent. That's a damning indictment. And in 4 weeks, those Canadians are going to hit the economic wall again. So what I need to know from the minister and what Canadians need to know is, will she commit, yes or no, that CERB will be there for those who have no work to go back to?
The Honourable Minister, very short answer.
Merci encore. Thank you once again. Chair, as you know, since the beginning of this crisis, we've helped families with the child benefit. We established the CERB, and we're going to continue to find ways to support Canadian families through this crisis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was all the way back on March 25th that the Minister of Finance stated that help for the energy sector was, quote, coming within hours, possibly days, close quote. Well, as it turns out, it hasn't been hours, it hasn't been days, it hasn't even been weeks. Indeed, months later, help has yet to arrive. 77 days after the minister made that statement, not a single energy company has received financing under EDC, BDC, or the LEAF program. As the energy sector faces an unprecedented liquidity crisis, how can this government possibly justify such a delay?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, weeks ago we opened applications through the Business Credit Availability Program to support small and medium-sized players that make up 85% of the jobs in our sector. We've also opened applications for measures that will be available to our larger players through the LEAF program. We will continue to work with industry. We continue to support workers, and we will continue to do so to get through this unprecedented challenge. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Mr. Cooper.
Madam Chair, the Vice President of the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers on June 4th said, quote, the entire industry is frustrated with the delay that we are facing, close quote. The Saskatchewan Minister of Energy has spoken about a gaping hole that exists in terms of support for the energy sector, and the gaping hole that I'm speaking of are the EDC and BDC programs that this government has failed to deliver upon. Indeed, it was on April 17th that those programs were announced, and 54 days later, not only has not a single energy company received financing, guess what? They can't even apply, and the eligibility criteria has yet to be finalized. After 54 days, if that is not failing to deliver for the energy sector, what is?
Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, the Business Council of Alberta said that the LEAF program is a positive development showing that the federal government recognizes the needs and value of Canada's large corporations. Madam Speaker, we agree it is essential that we support our oil and gas sector as it suffers through two crises, the impacts of COVID and the effects of a global price war initiated by Russia and Saudi Arabia. That's why it was weeks ago that we opened applications for liquidity measures to support the small and medium-sized players that make up 85% of the jobs in our sector. And we also announced liquidity made available to our larger players through the LEAF program. We will continue to work with industry to make sure that these programs are effective. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Mr. Cooper.
Madam Chair, contrary to the representations of the Minister, neither the EDC program or BDC programs are accepting applications, and indeed it was just yesterday that officials from both the BDC and EDC were before the Finance Committee, in which I posed to them precisely those questions. Now, we know, Madam Speaker, that the application process isn't up and running, that eligibility criteria remains to be determined. But I guess this government has some good news for the energy sector after 77 days. Now, energy sector companies can go on the BDC website and apply for email updates. Is that the kind of help that the Minister of Finance had in mind after 77 days? Email updates instead of real relief for the energy sector.
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, the Alberta Finance Minister, Travis Taves, said on the LEAF announcement that in combination with earlier measures for small and medium-sized companies, it represented an expression of confidence in our industries. It is essential that we support our oil and gas sector as it suffers through these two crises. As I said, the impact of COVID, and then on top of that, the effect of a global price war. So we opened up applications for liquidity measures. It is what the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers asked for. Their top 5 asks were all liquidity. We supported small and medium-sized players essential to the supply chain they make up 85% of the jobs in that sector. And then we announced liquidity made available to our larger players through the LEAF program. We will continue to work with industry, and
we now have to interrupt for a few minutes while we allow our technicians to change places. Je regarde aussi.
C'est surtout.
Oui, je sais, mais. Monsieur Martin.
Mr. Martel. Chair, progress has recently been made in the case of André Gauthier, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Deputy Prime Minister for their cooperation on this file. Nevertheless, Mr. Gauthier has been left on his own in the UAE without a passport pending the outcome of civil proceedings. What services does the Prime Minister plan to provide him, and when does he expect to repatriate him to Canada? The Honourable Minister. Madam Chair, I can tell you that in all similar cases to the one of Mr. Gauthier, the Government of Canada has worked with consular services to do the best thing possible in the circumstances, and this is still an active file. Chair, on February 18th, this House recognized that 15 weeks of EI sick leave was not enough. People who fell ill before March 15th are now without assistance. They've been refused CERB because they didn't lose their job because of COVID-19, and they've been refused regular EI because they're not fit to work. And then some of these people are waiting for a surgery that was delayed because of COVID-19. And I want to know, is the government turning its back on these people? The Honourable Minister. Madam Chair, absolutely not. We understand that some people have run out of EI and they should be able to access the CERB, and we're committed to extending the EI sick leave from 15 weeks to a greater number of weeks, and we can assure you that we're going to consider the needs and the specific situations of everyone in our effort of helping Canadians. Thank you. I've asked the minister several times to be more flexible in its programs so that it can be better adapted to the reality of regions. Once again, small businesses in Montreal are having a hard time receiving regional funding. When is the government going to listen to the needs of companies in the Lac-Saint-Jean region? On Radio Canada this morning, we announced another $75 million for Quebec regions, and I'd be happy to work with my colleague to help companies in his regions to support them, because we are ready to support companies in Lac-Saint-Jean and across the country. Thank you. Chair, the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean region is the one that is the most greatly affected economically by COVID-19. Yet, many opportunities depend on the leadership of this government to move forward. Aluminum, GNL, the Saguenay port, all of these things are in our region, and we want to restart the economy. When will the government take action for our region? The Honourable Minister. I'd like to thank my colleague. We've been working for your region for many days, and I had good conversations with people from your region, with various stakeholders in the beautiful region. And I'd like to tell you that there'll be other announcements for the Saguenay region for economic support shortly. Thank you. Mr. Martel. Chair, sustainable development in forestry is at the heart of economic development in Canada and in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean. Canadians are right to be proud of how the boreal forest is used in the fight against climate change, but there are many issues that were aggravated by COVID-19. What is this government doing to defend forestry workers? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Chair. We do believe in regional economic development, and that is why we're here to defend forestry workers. It'd also be a pleasure to work with my colleague, who's the minister of this file. And we know that we're going to rise to the challenges faced by these companies in this sector. We're going to support our employees and create more jobs across Quebec and Canada.
You're next. No. Mr. Hotta, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Madam Chair. We continue to see significant gaps in the Liberals' programs. There are still people who are falling through the cracks and are being left behind. We are hearing from women who are pregnant or who have just given birth are being left out or told to go back to work. When will this government stop letting Canadians down?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We know that there are many situations of Canadians, in particular Canadians who are about to or are just going on maternity or parental benefits, who might not have access to their EI benefits due to not having accumulated enough time for COVID reasons. We're working very hard to make sure, like we did for fish harvesters, that we support all Canadians in these situations, and I look forward to advising Canadians of our approach on this very soon. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Georgia?
That simply isn't good enough. Madam Chair, this is something that has been brought to the government's attention for months now, and still nothing has been done. These families deserve answers now. Had the government conducted a GBA Plus analysis, they would have discovered this prior to rolling out inadequate programs for women. Why wasn't a GBA Plus analysis conducted?
Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I can assure everyone in this House that we have been very aware, and we are aware and deeply concerned about the impact, the disproportionate impact on this pandemic on women and girls. And we are working hard to ensure that everyone has the supports they need. As we move forward, we are, as I said earlier, taking into consideration improvements to the EI system, the wage subsidy, the future of CERB. All these play together, Madam Speaker, as we work to provide a comprehensive, forward-looking support package for Canadians. Thank you.
Madam Chair, might I remind my honourable colleague that this Prime Minister said every piece of legislation would go through rigorous GBA Plus analysis. Why was it not done?
Honourable Minister.
Madam Chair, I can assure the member that we absolutely took into account the needs of women as we developed the CERB, and I can tell you that women are benefiting significantly from this benefit. Thank you.
Order.
Madam Chair, it is a simple question, and I will ask again. Why was a GBA Plus analysis not conducted for the COVID-19 relief programs?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, as I said, the needs of women and girls were taken into consideration every step of the way from the beginning as we work to provide a comprehensive suite of support for Canadians across the country. Thank you.
Ms. Sahota.
Madam Chair, if that's the case, then how did you miss these gaps?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I can assure the member that we didn't miss gaps. We, from the beginning, looked to support as many people as possible. And as we moved from supporting workers to supporting students, to supporting seniors, and today to supporting people with disabilities, we are ensuring that everyone is covered by our measures. As this pandemic evolves and as we move into economic recovery, of course we're going to make sure that women in particular are supported in our measures. Thank you.
Madam Chair, the Minister needs to take the responsibility here. These women and families deserve answers. This is a real problem happening right now. You said you would conduct GBA Plus analysis on all policy measures moving forward. Where is the assistance for these expectant mothers?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I take responsibility, and I'm very proud how many senior women that we have supported with our measures, how many women receive the GST credit, how many women who lead families receive the CCB one-time payment, and how many women with disabilities will receive the disability support if we have all-party consent today.
Ms. Sahota, may I remind you that to please direct your questions through the chair.
Madam Chair, I will ask again, hoping for a straightforward answer from this minister. Why was a GBA Plus analysis not conducted on the COVID-19 relief programs?
Honourable Minister.
My goodness, Madam Speaker, I'll say again how important it was from the very beginning that we took into account the needs of women and girls, and as we move forward into the economic recovery phase, how completely at the core of every decision we make will women be. Thank you.
Ms. Sahota, you have 15 seconds.
My question is still not answered. She keeps repeating the same answer, so I'll keep asking the same question, hoping for a straightforward answer. Why was a GBA analysis not conducted on the COVID-19 relief programs?
Honourable Minister, 5 seconds.
Madam Speaker, we've taken into account the needs of women and girls from the beginning, and will continue to do so. Thank you.
Mr. Carey.
Madam Chair, on April 29th, I asked Minister Blair why Lisa Freeman, a constituent of mine, wasn't able to participate in the parole board hearing of her father's murderer. The minister acknowledged the mistake and that victims would now be able to attend via telephone and video conference. Can the minister tell this House how many parole hearings have been made or have been conducted under this digital format with victims since April 29th?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I thank my honourable colleague for the question, and I'm glad to hear that Minister Blair was able to provide information on the specific case that he raises, and with regards to his question, we're happy to provide it to him in due course.
Mr. Carey.
Madam Chair, on April 29th, the minister said, and I quote, steps have been taken to make it possible for victims to participate in those parole hearings by phone or video conference. If the change has been made, can the minister please tell us how many hearings have victims been able to participate by video conference?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to my colleague, as I said, certainly we will confirm the number of hearings that may have occurred, and with regards to the hearings under the Parole Board of Canada, we want to ensure that victims and others are able to participate in a fair and transparent manner.
Carey.
Madam Chair, the website says, and I quote, to protect the health and safety of the public, offenders, parole board members and staff in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the PBC is currently conducting its hearings remotely via video conference or teleconference. Yet when referring to victim participation, the PBC says it has, quote, implemented technological and procedural enhancements in order to provide victims the ability to participate via telephone. If video conference is an option for staff and inmates, why not victims?
Well, Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as I said, it is very important that all parties are able to participate before the Parole Board. The Parole Board has introduced technologies to allow victims to participate in a manner that is fair and that accords them with the opportunity to express themselves.
Madam Chair, the minister is missing the point. For victims beside the criminal trial, the Parole Board hearings are the only chance to participate in the judicial process. Why are victims not permitted on the video conference while staff, panels, and inmates are?
Honourable Minister.
Madam Chair, as I've said now on a number of occasions, victims are able to participate in the hearings before the Parole Board. This is as a result of technology and innovations introduced by the Parole Board, and of course those opportunities will continue to exist going forward.
Mr. Carey.
And Madam Chair, why did the minister and this government tell Canadians in the House that victims of crime have the opportunity to participate in parole hearings by video conference when in fact they do not?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Chair, as I've said, of course, we are going to confirm the status of that particular request, but in the meantime, as I've said on a number of occasions, victims are able to participate in these hearings, and this is consistent with the fairness of those hearings and the due process that we accord to them.
The Honourable Mr. Carey.
Madam Chair, it's been over a month. When will the minister finally give victims of crime the same rights to parole hearings via video conference as he gives convicted inmates?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Chair, I reject that proposition. The Parole Board is a well-established tribunal that does allow for all parties, including victims, to participate in a manner that is fair, that allows them to express themselves so that those representations can be taken into the decisions of the Parole Board of Canada.
Mr. Carey.
So he can reject it as much as he wants, Madam Chair, but it seems that he thinks that it's fair that inmates have that right, but victims don't. So we'll follow up with him on that. Madam Chair, Brandon Hottot owns and operates a contracting business in my riding, and his company needs help. On May 19th, the Prime Minister announced that the government would allow sole proprietors and gig contractors to qualify for the Canada Emergency Business Account. However, Brandon has still not been able to take advantage of this benefit. When can small business owners like Brandon expect this change to finally be made? In over 3 weeks, and the clock is ticking.
Honourable Minister.
Madam Chair, and to my honourable colleague for that really important question. From the very beginning, we have been working hard to support our small businesses, and I want to say that over 660,000 businesses today have received access through the small business loan, and I want to assure my colleague that that additional support will be there within about a week. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Mr. Carey, very short question.
Okay, Madam Chair, Sean and Denise operate a gymnastics facility in Whitby and have been forced to close throughout COVID-19. As the economy begins to open, they are concerned about not having the money to pay their employees in the short term, especially at a reduced client capacity. Is the government extending the wage subsidy to small businesses that have been closed and are just beginning to open now?
The Honourable Minister, very short answer.
The wage subsidy has been extended until August 31st, and we hope that businesses like that one will be able to take advantage of the wage subsidy to keep their employees on staff. Thank you.
Ms. May.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to put on the record, because we may or may not be debating it, but certainly the draft embargoed bill that we've seen is unacceptable to members of the Green Party caucus, and my questions will relate largely to those sections that are troublesome. I'll start with a question to the Minister, the Honourable Minister for Disabilities, and I certainly appreciate her work, and I know her intentions are the best, but Part 3 of this bill provides disability tax credit recipients with a one-time, well, allows for the information to be shared so that they can get a one-time payment of $600, which is not enough to really deal with the COVID crisis for people with disabilities. It's clear, and I thank the Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party for making this point clearly in question period, that it will reach approximately 40% of people with disabilities because of the structure of going through the disability tax credit. I'd ask the Honourable Minister, are other measures under consideration to reach the rest of people in Canada with disabilities who need help?
Honourable Minister.
I thank the member for her really important question. Madam Speaker, the disability support payment we are proposing and we hope to get through the House today complements a whole suite of measures our government has put in place that people with disabilities have access to. We know that people with disabilities who were precariously employed are now taking advantage of CERB. Students with disabilities get the student benefit, including a $750 per month top-up for 4 months. Children of families with children with disabilities are getting the CCB payment. More disproportionately, people with disabilities are benefiting from the GST payment. This, again, I should talk about the provincial measures that are being delivered to recipients of provincial disability supports.
Goes on and on.
All around, Madam Speaker, we're trying to get to every citizen with a disability, and this fills an important gap. Thank you.
Outstanding.
Much worse than Part 3, from our point of view, is the treatment of people who are, at this point, potentially to be jailed, relating to refusal to return to work when it's considered reasonable, and recipients of CERB. I wonder about the reasonableness here. It's a subjective test. This is a wrong-headed approach to go after people and threaten them. The retroactive sections already made the Canadian Civil Liberties Union question its constitutionality. But I put it to the Minister, what's reasonable, and in whose eyes is it reasonable? Today's news says the Hamilton chief medical officer says there's a spike in cases among young people who likely were exposed taking public transit to get to work. Their commute wasn't safe. Who determines reasonableness in deciding it's not safe to go back to work?
Well, Minister.
Madam Speaker, like with the current CERB, moving forward, CERB tries to encompass the situations of people who are unemployed, people who can't work because of childcare responsibilities, people who are ill or sick. Moving to a broad term of reasonableness allows us to look at the individual circumstances of the person. If we stuck to language like suitable or appropriate, that would qualify the job. We're trying to look at the person and look at their particular circumstances as we work to ensure that if someone is immunocompromised and they can't take transit to their job, then it's reasonable for them not to take that job. That's the exact example we're trying to encompass with broad reasonableness criteria. Thank you.
The approach is so very flawed, Madam Speaker, in that it attempts to punish people as opposed to encourage them. I think the Liberals have been over-influenced by the Conservative Party's cries that there's vast fraud, that Canadians are cheating. But the reality of this is if you want to create an incentive to go back to work, you don't threaten people. What you do is create a sliding scale, let people continue to receive CERB, but maybe less as they begin to earn more, so that we have a transition on a sliding scale into the wage subsidy or into CERB. So I ask the Honourable Minister, how can it be considered fair to say that someone isn't eligible even though they believed they were? The language in this bill, particularly at subsection E on the penalty section 12.1, is an unreasonable determination that someone has violated the Act and is subject to jail time and heavy fines.
Mr.
Madam Speaker, I can't and won't speak because of parliamentary privilege to specific acts of a piece of law that hasn't actually been introduced in the House. But I'll tell you that what we're trying to do is enhance our integrity measures. We're trying to ensure not that people who make an honest mistake, not that people who
took advantage of returning to work when they were still receiving the service. We're working with those people. We're absolutely confident that those people will find a path forward to them. We want to deal with intentional fraudsters, people who are criminally taking advantage of seniors. Fact patterns that members of this House have brought to my attention and said, please deal with these. This is exactly what we're trying to deal with, Madam Speaker.
Mr. Cannings.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'm going to be sharing my time with the member from Esquimalt, Saanich-Sooke. Now, tourism is a critical part of the economy throughout my riding. And after struggling with years of forest fires and floods, tourism was set to have a record-breaking year this year in 2020, but the COVID epidemic has burned tourism to the ground, in the words of a local leader. Thousands of jobs have evaporated. Over half of the tourism businesses in the region are facing imminent insolvency. And many of them are small seasonal operations that don't qualify for any of the government's COVID support programs. Now, while funding for ad campaigns are appreciated, these businesses need direct support, and they need certainty about that support. So can the Finance Minister pledge now to provide direct and timely support to tourism businesses in my riding?
Well, Minister.
Thank you to my colleague for his important question, and I agree with him. The tourism sector has been deeply impacted by the pandemic and the economic crisis. And yes, we were looking forward for another record-breaking year in 2020, but unfortunately the pandemic happened, and therefore many businesses are impacted. So that's why, as a government, we're there to help. With the wage subsidy that has been extended until the end of August, like the tourism sector has been asking us to do, with the CEBA loans, the $40,000 loans, which includes also a subsidy, and with the commercial rent relief. That being said, we know that the tourism sector is also sometimes falls through the cracks, so that's why we wanted to have a backstop. We came up with the funding through the regional development agencies. In my colleague's writing, it's Western Economic Diversification, and some businesses have applied and have received funding. So if there are more that needs help, please come and see me, because we would love, I would love to be there to help your community, help tourism business.
Mr. Cannings.
Well, a big part of the tourism in my riding is the wine sector. And one of the things that has allowed the wine industry to grow so dramatically in the past few decades is the excise tax exemption. But that exemption could likely very soon end, because if it is found to be non-compliant with our trade agreements. Now, the industry has proposed a trade legal replacement, the Wine Growers Value Add program. The Finance Minister has known about this situation for months. Can he assure this House and the industry that the government will act immediately to implement this program?
Honourable Minister. Very short answer.
Madam Chair, I want to thank the member for his question and say that we continue to work on this issue. We recognize how important the wine industry is in BC, and I'll assure him that that I will come back to him and give him an update.
Mr. Garrison.
This is National Blood Donor Week in Canada, and while blood and plasma donations are always important, during this pandemic, they're critical. There's a simple and effective way to increase the blood supply: end the gay blood ban. More than 17 other countries have no deferral because they know that behavior-based screening provides better security for the blood supply than identity-based exclusions. The Liberals must agree because they promised this in 2 election campaigns. Will the Minister of Health do more than repeat those same promises today and instead take action to get this unscientific and discriminatory gay blood ban lifted?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm glad to be able to answer this very important question. We indeed want to fight against discrimination. We feel this particularly strongly in the context of the last few days and the last few weeks. We are also mindful of the important contribution of scientists and other experts in this area, and we look forward to working with all members in this House in making progress on that issue.
Mr. Garrison?
The government knows I've been calling on friends, family, and allies of the gay community to donate blood this week in the place of those of us who cannot. Not only do we need routine blood donations, but to do the research we need on possible prevention and treatment of COVID-19, we urgently need plasma donations from those who've recovered. Yet this ban means that plasma donations are being rejected for no good scientific reason. Again, when will the Minister of Health act to get this ban lifted?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you again, Madam Speaker. I would like to thank once more the member for his very important question, where I think he used the keywords, the right keywords, which are based on science and more prevention work to make sure that everyone lives in dignity and safety. And although there has been progress in the last few months and years on this important issue, there is more work to be done.
Mr. Garrison.
Tabled a motion in the House calling for an end to this homophobic and transphobic ban on blood donations from gay men, men who have sex with men, and trans women. That was 5 ministers of health ago. At the time, I was told certain things had to happen before the ban could be lifted. These were all due to be completed earlier this year before the COVID crisis. Since we appear to have cross-party support for my new motion M41 that I put on the notice paper this week, would the minister and the government agree to support a unanimous consent motion to proceed with M41 immediately?
The Honourable Minister, short answer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Homophobia and transphobia are examples of discrimination and absolutely important things to not only to recognize but to fight against, and that's why we are pleased to have voices such as a member of Parliament's voice to make sure that we make progress in making sure that everyone in Canada lives in safety and in dignity.
Mr.
Blanchet-Jonca. Madam Speaker, I will share my time with the member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. As the economy slowly reopens in Quebec, the prospects are not good for the tourism sector. The economy of several regions in Quebec depend on tourism, and their economic stability will be good in the next months. Will the finance minister extend the CERB beyond the original 16 weeks to provide a minimum level of vital financial support for people who work in tourism? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I said in English, we're working very hard to make sure that we will be still there for all Canadians, either with CERB or with the wage subsidy program. Apologies for my French. But
very soon, Madam Speaker, but the point is that we want to make sure that all these programs work well together, whether it's the wage subsidy or the CERB. We want to make sure that we incentivize work, but we still continue to be there for Canadians.
Bravo. Blanchet-Jonca.
Mr. Blanchet-Jonca. Madam Speaker, it's been reported that the government wants to gradually replace the CERB with the wage subsidy program. That's all very well and good. But seasonal industries are not eligible under present criteria. If the minister is so aware of how important tourism is in the economic cycle of our regions, he must commit to helping workers. If there are no tourists, there is no tourism sector. It's that simple. We still need the CERB, but we need to use it to incentivize people to find work and not punish those who are lucky enough to go back to a job. So my question is simple. Will the government extend the CERB? The Honourable Minister.
Hard to make sure that we will continue to support Canadians as we transition back to through economic recovery, to make sure that we support Canadians, but of course we don't want to disincentivize work. We know when the CERB was created, it was for a different purpose. We asked people to stay home, to be safe, and to self-isolate if they had symptoms. We want to make sure, as we ask people to go back to work, that we don't disincentivize work, but the reality is there won't be jobs there for everyone, and we need to continue to support everyone. Thank you.
Monsieur Trudel.
Mr. Trudel. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would join my colleague to wish you a happy Day of Portugal. I'm the member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert, which is probably the nicest riding in Quebec. No, I'm sorry, it's us. We are the nicest riding. But our riding was probably one of the worst hit by COVID. There's been economic and health devastation, many services, bars, theaters. Madam Speaker, really, we are not going to go see any show of Fred Pellerin or anyone else anytime soon. The entertainment sector was hit first. It will be the last to open. People are anxious. The CERB ends July 4th. So will the government extend the CERB and include an incentive for work? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Minister, and thank you to my colleague for his question and for all of his work in the arts and culture sector. From the outset, we've been there to support our creators, our artistic organizations. We implemented the CERB and also the wage subsidy program, which we also allowed non-government organizations to access. We wanted to make sure that people who depend on royalties won't be affected. And we also announced a fund of $500 million to specifically help the entertainment sector, because we know that this sector has been hard hit by COVID-19. We've been there for our artists and creatives. We will keep on being there for them. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that's all very well and good, but instead of giving a long preamble, let me ask a simple question. Will the CERB be extended on July 5th? The Honourable Minister.
Opposite that in July we will be there for Canadian workers. Thank you.
Here. Monsieur Trudel.
Mr. Trudel. On Saint-Charles in Longueuil, there's a restaurant, the Crêpe Café, which has just closed for good. Another restaurant owner said, I'm going to reopen, but I don't know how quickly. Will it be at 15, 30, 45% capacity? Nobody knows. There's so much uncertainty. Nobody knows how quickly the economy will reopen and how many hours these restaurant owners will be able to give to their employees. Will they be able to open for 12 hours? So will the government commit to extending the CERB and incentivize work so the economy can reopen? A quick answer, please. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I understand that the restaurant sector has been hard hit, and I have a lot of empathy for what my colleague is describing and a lot of empathy for restaurant owners, and that's why we're helping our small and medium-sized businesses. We've put money aside under the Economic Development Agency for Quebec. If my colleague wants to work for me to ensure that help is there for restaurant owners and other SMEs in Longueuil, I'll be happy to work with him.
Mr. Bragdon.
Hi. Madam Chair, last month on May 5th, I asked the government how they plan to support the agricultural sector. Liberals announced a $50 million surplus food purchase program as part of their agricultural aid package. Now, 1 month later, our farmers who provide the food we need are still waiting on funds to be delivered. The New Brunswick potato industry is sitting on a massive amounts of last year's crop that, due to the pandemic, has no buyers. When will the Prime Minister and this government step up and deliver the support our farmers are so desperately in need of?
The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister.
Are you okay, sir? Okay, go, Mark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And without question, we want to continue to support farmers. I know that my colleague, Minister Bibeau, has introduced hundreds of millions of dollars for farmers. In addition to that, we provided relief and support for migrant workers who are ensuring that Canadians get access to safe and affordable food. Thank you.
Mr. Bragdon.
Madam Chair, when support for the agriculture sector was announced on May 4th, our agriculture sector had been sounding the alarm for weeks that they needed help to continue to meet Canadians' food needs. It has been over a month since that announcement, and our farmers are still waiting on help. It is worth noting, Madam Chair, that vegetables like the potatoes in New Brunswick that I previously mentioned are perishable products. Our farmers do not have the luxury of time. So again, will the Prime Minister and this government make agriculture a priority and provide them with the support they desperately need right now?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Obviously, we believe in the importance of our regions and our rural communities, and that's why we've always made sure that agriculture was at the core of many of the decisions throughout this pandemic. And that's why our colleague, Minister Bibeau, who's the Minister of Agriculture, has been there providing the right liquidities and the right supports through this pandemic. Of course, we want to make sure that we continue to partner with provinces and territories because we need their help in this context to make sure that all together we show strong economic solidarity for farmers that are going through tough times. Thank you.
Bragdon?
On May 1st, the Liberals introduced a sweeping firearms ban through an order in council that outlawed 1,500 firearms. Recent reports show that since then, more and more firearms are quietly being added to the list of banned firearms, including many common hunting rifles and shotguns. Madam Chair, our hunters, outfitters, dealers, and sports shooters are some of the most vetted members of our society. Why does the Prime Minister insist on making criminals out of law-abiding firearms owners instead of dealing with the criminals we already have?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Chair, I'm very proud of this government's record when it comes to ensuring that we take out of our communities those guns who had one object only, and that is to kill other people. We will always stand by that record, and we will continue to take the steps that are necessary to keep our communities safe.
Mr. Bragdon?
Madam Chair, the Liberals have said that to compensate firearms owners, they will implement a national buyback program. Instead of targeting law-abiding firearms owners and their legally purchased private property, wouldn't the estimated $250 million needed to buy back these firearms be better utilized right now supporting our agricultural sector, the very people who grow our food and literally keep our land?
Honourable Minister.
Madam Chair, through you to my colleague, of course, we look forward to saying more about that buyback, but of course, we remain committed to taking those guns who only have one object, and that is to kill people. The legislation that we've introduced, the measures that we have taken are designed to keep our community safe, and of course, we will do that, and we will also continue to support farmers, introducing hundreds of millions of dollars support because we know that they are providing Canadians with affordable food. Thank you.
Mr. Bragdon, short question.
Madam Chair, many sole proprietors have been hit extremely hard by this pandemic. My office has heard from many who have been in business for nearly 30 years and submitted hundreds of HST returns and still cannot access the CEBA funding because they do not have a business checking account, as a lot of small business owners use their personal checking accounts to do their business. The Liberals offered aid to sole proprietors, but attached unnecessary hurdles that prevent many of them from accessing the funds they desperately need to keep their businesses afloat. When will these unnecessary hurdles be removed so businesses can start to receive the relief they so desperately need?
Very short answer from the Honourable Minister.
So we believe in the importance of making sure that we're supporting our businesses, including sole proprietors. That's why our colleague, Minister Ng, Minister of Small Businesses, has been working on this and will continue to make sure that we take the appropriate steps to recognize that. Meanwhile, people can definitely come to the regional development agencies if they don't have access to funding through banks, and that's a good way to make sure that there's a backstop. Thank you.
Please note that under the orders adopted in April and May, the House was recalled. The committee will therefore adjourn, and the House of Commons proceedings will begin at 2:30. The bells will be triggered to call in MPs, and there will be a speakers parade. So this meeting is now adjourned.